All right, I would like to call this meeting of the Lisbon Town Council to order. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Twyla, the roll call.
Counselor Bowie?
Here.
Counselor Bickford?
Yeah.
Counselor Cody?
Here.
Counselor Pomelo?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Here.
And Counselor Mason is excused.
All right, the first order of business.
Is under public hearings, Chapter 46, Access Management, Article 5, Section 46 through 134.
All right, I will open that public hearing. Anyone from the public who would like to speak may take the podium.
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. First of all, I want to commend the planning board for an outstanding job they did on this. I think that this is an excellent article that needs to be incorporated into the town ordinances. However, I disagree wholeheartedly with just limiting the streets that it affects. This is written in such a manner, and it is for the public safety of our residents in this town, that this is being incorporated. If it applies to the roads that they have here, restricted to the roads they have here, we're only doing a partial justice to the residents. This is a safety issue, and the streets, other than the main roads that they accessed here, we were told last meeting that it was because of the school system. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but our school buses travel almost every street in this town, picking up and letting off our kids. I would like to see this changed to read all the streets in the town of Lisbon, because it's an excellent document. The planning board's okayed it. The state has given its blessing on this and incorporated their standards in here. I can't think of anybody that would be more qualified than those two entities to give us what is the best product for this town. Now, some people will say it's too restrictive. However, if you look at paragraph 3 of this, it allows for waivers. So if someone has an issue with it being too restrictive, there is a course of action that they can follow to submit it to the planning board for them to review. So I would like to see this changed to reflect all streets in the town of Lisbon, because it's a safety issue and the safety of our residents need to come first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. Anyone else who would like to speak from the public on that issue?
I'm Don Fellows from this side of town and on the planning board, but I'm not speaking for the planning board. I'm only speaking as someone who's been there and done that and listened to this. I agree with Mr. Fillmore in that we did some hard work on it and that it's an excellent form or future statute. And we had many discussions about what streets it should apply to. Originally, it was intended to apply to just state roads. We expanded it slightly, but we did not expand it further because we wanted to see what effect this had on our town as it is before we got any further. As you may see in there, there's a revision that has Main Street But it applies north of Houston Street. And that's because of the number of driveways and the possibilities of change of use issues that could develop. And there are some standards in here that are not waiverable, sight distance being one of them, and we didn't want to put an undue burden and to give this ordinance a chance to get a start in Lisbon before we expand it.
Thank you, Mr. Fellows. Anyone else from the public who'd like to speak? Yes, yes, you can have a second chance.
I understand what Dawn said. However, as Mrs. Pomelo has pointed out on numerous occasions, we're not getting anything done. And if we don't do it right the first time, why would we want to keep doing it over and over and over again? We have an excellent document here, but if we don't, I think we should apply it to everything, like I said. If that is done, doesn't work, so be it. But now he's saying just the opposite. He's saying that we'll go back and fix it if it works for the town. We shouldn't do it that way. We should do it just the opposite. Put it in, restrict it to everything, and then on a case-by-case basis, or if it needs to be rewritten, rewrite it. He's got the power. It's in the planning board, has the waivers in there. Now, he mentioned sight distance. I would think that sight distance would probably be the most critical of any part of this restrictions. Because if there's a vehicle on the side of the road that you can't see around, and there are kids walking, people running, or people walking, or whatever the case may be, you're never going to see them until it's too late. That's the purpose of the sight portion of this. Also, if you look at it closely, the reference to sight distance has to do with the speed limit on the road itself. So as the speed increases for the speed limit, so do the restrictions. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Okay? Drivers should always have a clear sight of vision when they're driving. And if they're restricted, then we have a chance for fatalities and things like that. I'm saying that I think that we're doing this wrong, that we need to include all the streets, and especially the sight distance.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. Anyone else who would like to address this issue? All right, seeing none, I will close that public hearing, and we'll move on to the next item.
Is vitul's license for Raymond Bisson, doing business as the Kitty Corner.
Anyone here who would like to speak on that issue? I'll open that up, public hearing up. Anyone here for Kitty Corner Store? All right, seeing none, I will close that public hearing, and we'll move to the next item.
Is a special entertainment permit for Lisbon Left Hand Club.
All right, I'll open that public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak on the issue of the Lisbon Left Hand Club special entertainment permit? All right, seeing none, I will close that public hearing. And we'll go to the next item.
Is audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium and state your name and address for the audience here and at home.
All right, anyone, Mr. Fillmore?
That's why I said so close. At the July 19th meeting, the town manager responded to the question by Mrs. Fitzgerald about a full report on the Moxie Festival financial outcome, and he stated that he would have that available to us and have it to this council in a couple of weeks. We're now 6 weeks later. I haven't seen it. Has anybody on the council seen it? I thought we agreed that the council agreed that we were going to be debriefed on it. I've seen nothing. Why is nothing scheduled? And why don't we have a briefing if we're told we're going to have a report in a couple of weeks, then it should be on the agenda in a couple of weeks, not 6 weeks later. Okay? So I'm looking for an answer as to where is the financial and a briefing on the Moxie Day Festival.
Would you like to
The
speak to
gentleman
that?
behind you will answer that question.
We'll have that full report on the 20th, at the meeting at the 20th. We actually had hoped to do it this evening, but I got a lot of stuff on my plate, so I asked if we could move it back a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, at the last meeting, that we were talking about, Ken was talking about vehicles and who's allowed to take them home. Mr. Eldridge stated that the animal control officer takes his vehicle home every night because he supports 4 communities. Do these communities, these towns pay for our animal control officer? Or do they pay the town of Lisbon for the services? And if so, what account does that go into? He's paid $32,000 by us. If the other towns pay him $30,000 too, that comes out to about $100,000. Okay, so that's a little out, over the edge. If it's services to us, what account does the money go into? And how do we account for it?
Would you like to speak to that, Steve?
I'll speak to that. The budget that you see in our operating budget for the ACO, that whole dollar amount is split amongst the 4 communities. And so at halfway through the year, we get a check that comes in as a revenue from each of the communities. And then at the end of the fiscal year, we send out a bill for the remainder, which it comes in after June 30th.
Okay, that's fine. But on the budget for the town of Lisbon, his wages should not be that much. Our portion of it should be what is recorded there. Instead of $32,000, whatever our share is, $8,000, should be what is on our town budget, not $32,000.
We still expend it out of our budget as a total dollar amount.
Okay.
And then it gets offset by the revenue that comes in from the other communities.
Okay. When do the minutes of the town council meeting become public records?
Twyla, would you know that?
We generally release those as soon as the council adopts them. They'll be posted tomorrow on the web.
Aren't these minutes supposed to reflect an accurate account of what was discussed or the questions asked during the meeting?
Yes.
Each chairperson decides how they would like the minutes presented to the council. Our past chairperson wanted them verbatim, exactly how they were recorded. This particular chair had a different perspective. Instead of generating 15 or 20 pages, he asked to have it in a shorter version. If somebody wants to see the meeting in its entirety and what was said, they can view it either on Great Falls TV, or they can receive a copy as a disc at a cost of $15.
Understand, because I requested 2 today. But my point is, if the minutes of the meeting are public records, once they are approved, then they have to reflect, not verbatim, I understood that, I got that, okay? But they have to be an accurate account of what took place during the meeting. I'll give you an example. On the 2nd of August, I talked about the council working rules. And I gave a detailed briefing as to why, the way they were written, it was impossible for the residents to comply with. If you go to the 2 August minutes of the meeting that you people approved, it is not there. So that means that we don't have a accurate record of what took place that meeting. Another issue that was on the 2nd of August was I asked why the $5,700 that you people approved and committed to the fire department that was not used yet had not been returned to the general council. Now, that it wasn't in the seconds either, and you proved it. Now, I believe, and you can check with your town attorney, that these are legal documents once you people approve them. And if you're approving documents that do not contain everything that is taking place during these meetings, then that's wrong. I understand that these meetings do not have to be verbatim, but the questions that's asked of this council certainly need to be in these minutes of these meetings. Are we going to comment on whether that's legal or not? We have a lawyer right there. We got one back here, too. I mean,
I would want to say, Mr. Fillmore, that the minutes are also a summary of what happened, and not necessarily every comment that every person makes is going to be in there, and that's not an attempt to whitewash what people say.
I understand that, but if we ask questions, those questions should be in the minutes of the meeting. They're questions. They're not comments or editorials, and I understand limiting it because you don't want this thing to go on forever. But the questions that are asked here and the answers provided by you people need to be in those minutes in order to make them legal.
Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Terrio? Okay. All right, Mr. Fillmore, do you have anything further?
Oh, yes. Where are the minutes for the 19th of July? Somebody want to give me that one? None of the minutes that you people have approved have been for 19 July. That was a meeting. And we went through that meeting. I went back through every agenda item. I looked on the Great Falls TV, and on Great Falls, it's out there. But there are no minutes ever been recorded or approved by the town of Lisbon Council for the 19th of July. Now, isn't that odd that we should have to go through as citizens and find these things out and present them to you people? The 19th of July should have been done before August 2nd.
I think I just forgot to post those. I'm sorry, Larry. They are done, just so you know.
Well, the council hasn't voted on them, so they can't be done.
I'll double check. I'm thinking they were.
No, trust me, Twyla, you know me long enough to know that I research everything,
Just harassment.
okay?
I probably may have been at a conference that week, and there's,
Okay.
yeah, and then my assistant may have done them, and then so they got into the system a little slower.
Okay.
All right, but many of these are clerical questions, Larry, that you could bring up outside of a meeting.
No, because they're legal actions, because you people approve these. Now, if you have on the table tonight the minutes for the last council meeting, on these minutes, and I know none of you have read it, on the discussion that we had on 4 Campus Avenue, shows in the minutes that it's 20 Campus Avenue. Clerical error, but very important for future, if it comes up again. Okay? These things have got to be accurate when you people sign off on them, because they are now a legal document, public records. So we need to make sure they're accurate. And right now, they're not. And we need to take action to correct those, because we're paying a lot of money to have people make sure that these items are done correctly, okay, and that we follow the standards that's going through for the law. It's not being done, okay? Where are the council working rules? I know I'm getting running out of time, Mark. I got
Almost
it.
out of time.
This is
so.
the last thing I got. At the last meeting, we approved a version which was impossible to comply with, and the council stated it was a work in progress. Well, why isn't the working council rules agenda on the agenda for today? Why? Are they finished? Have you guys finished them?
They were voted on and approved several meetings ago.
Very good.
Yeah.
Remember that thought. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak to the public, take the podium.
Dot Fitzgerald, a resident of Lisbon Falls. Several things. Where I'm not allowed to speak after an item comes up for discussion on the council, I'll start in now with the carries and transfers. I didn't go back to my budget, I'm on the budget committee, to see what we pay for legal for the year. Can anyone enlighten me on that?
I don't have the number in front of me, Dot.
Okay, why are we transferring $18,798.76 to pay for legal expenses? I spoke on this a year or two ago on the Public Works Department, the winter. We've got Winter Public Works transferring $34,930.81. You know what happens every year, so why don't you budget enough to pay for this so that we don't have to go through this every year, the transfers?
I totally agree with you, Dot, and I fought for that winter planning, that winter plowing budget, and, you know, people didn't agree with me on that, but I agree with you there. Certainly, we should budget what we're spending.
And legal?
Oh, yes, I agree there, too.
Does anybody else agree? Why isn't it being done? Why isn't it being put into the budget?
Yep. Okay, it's not a question and answer section with the council right now. You're allowed to make your comments, but don't expect people to have to answer you back.
Okay, street and traffic lights, $7,285.85 being transferred. I thought we were eliminating some of the traffic lights and street lights. So why are we having to transfer more money into that account?
Because the expenditures were more than we had budgeted for.
If we're supposed to be eliminating some streetlights to save money, and yet we're overspending.
I think the problem is we didn't cut quite as many back early enough in the year to get that budget down to where we'd projected it.
Okay, I don't always expect to get answers. Back down at the bottom, William Van Tunen as assessor. I went back to I had to go to Twyla to find out what things are on the agenda, an explanation of the agenda. And there are quite a few things here that are explained on the agenda, but William Van Tunen is not. One-year term expiring. You are planning on reappointing him. On the agenda, there's no dollar amount, there's nothing. What is the amount of money that you're planning on paying him? Also, on the revaluation, I'm wondering how many employees Mr. Van Tunen has. He's supposed to be doing the revaluation in 4 years. If he doesn't have enough employees, or then if he had maybe more, could it be done in a shorter period of time? Also, how many other towns is he working for at the same time that is delaying the time for the revaluation? As I said at the last meeting, I spoke to a gentleman, actually it was Mr. O'Donnell with O'Donnell Associates. He was kind enough to talk to me for over half an hour. The O'Donnell Associates does most of the town maps for the state of Maine, for the towns and cities in the state of Maine. And he said that they did a 4-year revaluation at one time. He said it doesn't work because between the time you start and the time it's finished, everything changes. The economy can change. So many things can change. To him, it didn't make any sense. So anyway, how many other towns, locations is he now working for? Is the personal property taxes completed? And I'm wondering how he's planning on doing the revaluation, one section at a time. If he does one section and then the revaluation is done there, then the taxes are not going to be consistent throughout the town. So, to me, this doesn't make sense.
So I do want to address the issue that you were talking about with whether he, like, why he would take 4 years. It's not an issue he doesn't have enough people or, he's too busy at too many other towns. We don't have the money to pay him all in 1 year. That's the issue here, why we have to do it over many years.
Well, as I said at the last meeting, a lady that I talked to, spoke to also, actually with the town of Durham, said that when she worked for West Bath, they did a revaluation and they did a 5-year loan, got the revaluation done in 1 to 2 years, but paid for it over 5 years. So that could have been done, but that wasn't even suggested, that was not even made an option for the town, for the taxpayers.
The taxpayers did vote down a attempt to bond it a number of years ago here.
Bonding does not make sense. Just like the fire department, $35,000 bonded over what, 10 years for siding and for electrical work, when you're giving employees raises. It just, doesn't make fiscal sense. I don't understand how this council works, so and the town manager and how it's not working for the town, it's not working for the taxpayers, and this is what you're supposed to be doing, this is what you're being paid to do.
All right, thank you. All right, if you'd like to take the podium, ma'am.
Miriam Morgan Alexander, Lisbon. I would like to draw the attention of the council to and commend the activities of the police department, fire department, and public works departments during the hurricane. I think they did a bang-up job, and we all owe them a vote of thanks.
Thank you. I agree also. They definitely deserve a round of applause. Anyone else from the public who'd like to speak?
Thank you. I'm Richard Golden, representing James Morrell. We're on the agenda, but I'm not sure we get to speak then, or we have to do it
Yes,
at this
you'll be allowed to
stage.
speak then, yes, yep. Anyone else from the public who would like to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda.
Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Roger, I know you'd had issues with some of those minutes there. Did you want to take those off the consent agenda and discuss if we need to make changes to that?
Well, I know that they're not correct, and I think they should be correct before
Okay.
we vote on them.
Which ones were that you had
I
issues with?
believe it was the 16th and the 23rd.
16th and the 23rd. Okay, well, we will move those off the consent
Point
agenda.
out what's wrong with it.
Well, we'll do that when we get to it as an item.
I'll do that for you. I don't think we need to do that during the meeting. I mean,
Bring them back?
Yeah, why don't we just take it off? We can discuss it later and then bring them back and get them in a form that everyone's happy with.
Right.
Oh, yep.
So at this moment in time, Order 2011-160 is to approve a victuals license for the Kitty Corner, special entertainment permit for the Lisbon Left Hand Club, and the minutes of August 9th.
That is correct. All those in favor?
You want a motion?
Oh,
I'll make a motion that
okay,
we
sorry,
accept
need a
those
motion.
3.
Okay, do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed 6-0.
All right, and the next item? Oh, yes, okay. Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to suggest that we move the executive session so that we can discuss that before we have to discuss some of our other orders.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm sorry, folks, I have to, we're going to take a break here and have an executive session. I don't know exactly how long it'll be, hopefully less than half an hour. And so do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? And opposed? And we need to read it out. It's section MRSA 4056C Economic Development and MRSA 4056C Acquisition and Real Property.
Order passed 6-0.
Yeah, we're going to move
Okay.
into that conference room.
We will come back once we're done with that. All right, are we all set and ready to go here? All right, well, we'll come back from executive session, and we will pick up our meeting where we were. Okay, so Twyla, the next item?
It's under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances. Order 2011-161, Access Management, Chapter 46, Article 5, Section 46 through 134. This is the second reading. It requires a roll call vote.
All right, do I have any discussion from council on that? Go ahead, Fern.
Actually, let Roger.
Okay, go ahead, Roger.
All I was gonna say was that, I like the document. I think it's a very well-written document. The only thing is I agree with, Mr. Fillmore that this should be done throughout the whole town. It's a safety issue. It brings up very good points throughout the town, and I think the council should take that into consideration when voting on this, that it is for the complete town.
Fern, do you have something to say?
I had an opportunity to sit through quite a few of the meetings and had listened to some really interesting discussion on this, and I do commend the planning board because they actually did put a lot of thought into this, and I can honestly say that I think that they have weighed on this heavily in multiple meetings. There was heavy discussion, and I was really under the concern one night that this may not pass at all because it was too restricted. There was a very kind of a mixed feelings amongst the planning board that I could sense that some people actually thought there was actually too many roads listed on this already. There was multiple discussions that this ought to be listed just to 196 alone, thinking that was the main travel through Lisbon Falls. So, I mean, even though I do realize it's a concern and some people think of it a little differently, taking the time to go through the meetings and listen to the discussions, the pros, the cons, the ups and downs, what it would detail, what it wouldn't. There were some really good arguments, and at the end of the day, I think they actually voted, and not 100%, to actually take this forward because there was some concerns that this was a little too restrictive. So I think if we were to push this back to the planning board now and actually say it would be all town roads, I don't think we'd have an ordinance in front of us to vote on. I really don't. I think it would actually be hung up in the planning board and probably not have been made this far. So what I learned about the wellhead, sometimes you have to kind of find some happy mediums to move forward, and I think that's what the planning board has done here. I think they've found the happy mediums, they've found the roads that they found to be the biggest concerns, and I think they did their job to vote it to get it to where we are. So as I do realize that every town and every street in town is a concern, I think they actually found the happy medium they needed to be able to move this forward to get it to us. So, I mean, that's why I'll be in favor of voting for it to move it forward.
Thank you, Fern. Anyone else have anything you want to add?
I guess the only question I would have is, do we have any workshops coming up with the planning board?
Do we have any workshops?
Nothing
with the planning board?
scheduled.
Nothing scheduled? Because I'm wondering if this, I mean, again, I think this is a good document, and I agree with a lot of things people have said here. I would like to see this go forward, and I understand all your points, Fern. I'm just wondering if we couldn't, in the spirit of trying to continue to work this and keep it active, if we had a workshop with the planning board so that the council could better understand maybe why they only brought these forward, why they didn't bring the others, kind of educate us some, and us maybe educate them some on why we might like to have some additional roads added to this.
Well, are you saying we should table it, or are you saying we should
No,
approve
I'm
this
saying-
and then do an look into an
I'm in favor of
expansion?
pushing this forward, but I'm saying that I'd like to see potentially a workshop with the planning board to better understand their side of it 100%, because I didn't get the $10 meeting to say that Fern got to, so I'd like a little more education on it as well, and maybe we can educate them potentially through a workshop that might allow them to say, yeah, we should probably maybe revise this or look at some additional areas.
Yeah, I went to a couple meetings, but I'd like to have more information myself.
If we'd like to have more information, educate ourselves, why are we pushing something forth that we are not comfortable with? This sounds like we are trying to push this through for the sake of pushing it through and not giving it total thought before we do it. I would say table it and bring it back at the next meeting, or after we've had an opportunity to sit down and discuss it with the planning board and not do it half-heartedly, and maybe decide that at that time it would be beneficial to do it for the whole town.
Well, I don't know, maybe you guys misunderstood at least my point, but I respect the planning board, and I respect what they brought forward to us and the work that they put into this. I want to get a better education from the planning board, the experts, the people who did such a great job, understanding why we didn't have other roads. Then when I understand that, I might be willing to make some changes, or they might be willing to make some changes based on a discussion with us. But I don't think we should stop this from going forward. I think we need to make sure that we implement this so that we cover a majority of the town with the safety issues that we need to and that are identified in here, because we constantly have new driveways going in, new buildings going up, and things like that, that I think we need to make sure follow an ordinance that we don't have in place today, much like the wellhead protection ordinance, right? So, I don't want people to misunderstand me. I think the planning board's done a great job. I respect what they've done, and I'm willing to vote forward on that. I just want to learn more from the planning board.
I think Fern does have a good point too, that we can't guarantee that the planning board would agree to our position and then we can get deadlocked with nothing at all. And that 196 corridor is quite important to get something there, because that's the most dangerous area where you're liable to have the most accidents because of the high traffic volumes there. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah. The doubt in everybody's mind is not making it real comfortable to vote in favor of this document. If you're that uncomfortable with it, that you feel that we need a workshop, once we voted on this thing, it becomes an ordinance for the town.
I'm not uncomfortable putting it in place, Roger. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm asking to understand their thought process more and understand
After it's
their
in,
stuff.
after it's in.
No, because I respect what they've done.
Yes, okay. I respect what
So I agree
they've
we
done.
should put
Okay.
this into place.
But the point that I'm making, Mike, is that once that we put it in place, it doesn't matter whether we understand it or not, it is an ordinance.
Roger, the issue of contention though is the additional roads, whether it should include everything or not. I mean, there's not dissent on any of the other issues in here at all beyond that. And that's the only one that we're having discussion over.
I disagree. I think that, I think that you've shown enough uncertainty tonight to further review this before we pass it.
Well, do you have any other issues beyond the roads that it's covering or not covering?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
think
I
it
don't
should-
either.
I think it should be passed covering the entire time, and then after the fact, if we have issues that we need to go back and make a little more, less restrictive, then we should deal with that at that time. But at the time of passing the ordinance, I think we should do it for the complete town and not be favoring just certain people. Do the whole town and let everybody deal with the issues that we are dealing with on 196 or wherever.
I don't believe we could without sending it back to the planning board, because that's a
Well,
pretty
send it
significant change. Just go ahead, John, if you'd like to come to the podium, I'll let you speak to that.
John Potvin, Planning Board. What you have before you, Roger, was recommended by the traffic planner for AvCog. She actually had it more restrictive, and we removed a few roads off there because you wouldn't have it in front of you. If it had everything listed on it originally, it would never have gotten there. Fern is absolutely right. I believe it passed 3-2. I mean, it barely got to you as it is now. We had two members dissenting. Joan Walton thought this was very important to protect the traffic flow on the main roads, 196, Route 9, I believe 125, north of Houston Street, or whatever direction it is. And based on her recommendation, a traffic expert, we present what you have before you.
Well, it's a very good document. And,
But I think as far as Mike and I'm sorry to interrupt, as far as Mike and Fern are saying, if it comes back to us and you want us to add all the roads, you won't have a traffic ordinance. You will not have access management with the board as it sits now, the planning board. That's my opinion.
Thank you, John. Don, did you have something you wanted to add?
Once again, my take on it from the planning board aspect was that we got this in the first place because of the urban compact area that state law isn't enforced in. This is an area that would not have enforcement in it, so that was why the encouragement on the part of AvCog and others to put one in place. When we considered other roads, we didn't consider every road, but the main idea was safety and traffic flow. And where you're dealing with traffic flow, safety of the public, and that's why these roads are considered. you could apply it to the whole town, but we had enough objection. It's not just the planning board that felt opposed to it, although some were opposed to begin with. But we got enough feedback from business in town that said, look what you're doing to me. If I change this building, if I change how I'm accessing or the use of my property, then I won't be able to put a driveway in, and it's not all waiverable because of sightline requirements. That's one of the reasons we didn't want to go any further than we did. And we thought that if you put an ordinance in place, cover the access you need to cover on the major roads, keep the traffic flowing as it should flow, and then if you need to expand it to other more, less busy roads in the future, then that's what would be applicable, what would be the thing to do.
Thank you. Anything further from council? All right, do I hear a motion on this?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the access management article.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? We'll go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Bali?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford? Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason is not here. Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay. Order passed.
All right, and the next item?
Order 2011-162, 231 Lisbon Street, Lisbon.
Mr. Morales, his attorney has asked if he could address the council on the 231 Lisbon Street property.
All right, if you'd like to take the podium.
I don't know how much you know about Jim, but he runs the Redemption Center at 231 Lisbon Street and the other one at the other end of town just before you hit Crafts. We were here approximately a month ago, and you guys met in an executive session with council, and it looked like we had an arrangement worked out where he would get his taxes current by the end of August, and the town would release whatever interest they may have acquired by way of any sewer or tax liens. At that time, Jim thought he was talking approximately $6,800 to $7,000. On August 25th, we received a document from Roger, which actually indicated that there was, well, it included 2011-2012 first payment, which made the total on just the taxes $9,491 and change. If you took off the 9/15 payment due next week, it would leave approximately $78.46 and per diem charge, which I don't have at this stage, and approximately $690 in back sewer liens. He has most of that money today. He needs till Monday morning, and he will have it available to pay and get those current through June 30th of 2011. He's prepared, and he's got his business going now. It's been a long haul. When he purchased the property from Casamia approximately 2005, that Redemption Center, the other business he's tried to run there, they've gone through a real progression, and and plus we were in the process of that recession, which really hit him hard. He also had difficulties with tenants in the other building that's located there, which hit him as well. From his perspective, he thought he had an agreement with the town welfare office to help a tenant in there pay for rent. They did for a while, then they stopped, and by the time he could evict that tenant, he was behind about $3,000 in income. He feels confident he will have the full amount, which we approximately $8,600. We don't have the exact amount today because we'd have to get a per diem by Monday, and he'll be able to come over to the town office and pay it at that stage. That will be both for taxes through June 30th and any and all sewer that's due through that period of time as well. One of the things that concerned me is when I got the list from Roger, it included December 15th payment, and I don't believe the council can or should be requiring that. I think if you look at your own ordinance, which is section 92.6, if I recall, it says you can ask for all back taxes to be paid up in full. September 15th isn't a back tax. It's not due until next week, and it won't get liened if it's not paid until next year. He has every intention getting caught up here, continue to make his payments as near on time as he can. This next payment might be a little late, but he's got the process going. He's putting away the money, and he's been able to save and come up with this chunk of money. losing this property would be really devastating to him. There's no mortgage on it, which is probably why the town's taking it. There's no mortgage on it because he went and got a home equity loan when he purchased the property. He still has that mortgage on his house. And without the income that he's receiving from this property, he's likely to lose his house as well. We also have an issue whether or not the proper notice of redemptions were sent by the town. I prefer not to have to get into that because we're just asking the town to give him a few more days to get current on his taxes, which he will do by Monday. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. He'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Does the council have any questions or anything they'd like to ask?
I only like to
The
see-
only other thing I would mention is there was also a requirement about a month ago that there's some concern of some code issues. So Mr. Cody, he's here, he went to the site, and all those were corrected and have been corrected, so there's no violations at this stage, and he took care of all those in a timely manner.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Yes, go ahead, Roger.
I'd just like to say that I'd like to see the council and the town work with this gentleman. He's obviously trying his best to try to get his taxes paid for. He is putting a good effort towards it, and I think that it's only right that we give him an opportunity to save his property, to save his business.
I agree. I think we definitely should try to work with him and not, make undue hardships there. We definitely need to basically delegate to our lawyer to work with you and try to sort something out there that's, reasonable.
I think it's very straightforward. If all we're asking is for the town to agree that if he comes in Monday, pays those liens up to date through June 30th, that the town release it any right it may have acquired by way of the tax or sewer liens.
All right.
I don't think there's any other issue from the town's or from Roger's perspective on that.
It's not my issue.
No, that's right. I meant from a legal point of view.
Go ahead, Roger.
Is this something that we can vote on tonight to give it to him if he makes his payment on Monday to clear him to keep his establishment?
I believe we could, but we haven't seen the
Why
money
is
yet.
that- Why don't we do that as a council and vote on it?
We're asking you to vote because I was reluctant to have him come in with most of the money before the end of the month because I said to him, you could be throwing it away because the town could decide to take that and still say you're behind. So we just want assurance that he comes in with it, he'll get the release.
I mean, I agree. I just want you to understand that our concern from our angle is that he comes in and pays the back taxes and then is immediately delinquent a week later on the next payment. That's not very fair to the other taxpayers who have been keeping up with their tax bills. Can you see our angle on there?
Well, in order to come up with this money, quite honestly, he's had to put away a chunk and had to apply what he was putting away for that payment. He's working out, he's got it into his budget so that he hopes that no later than hopefully sometime in November, he'll be paying the September payment, and hopefully sooner than that. There's just no guarantee. He's going to get that paid as quick as he can. He understands, and I don't think he did before he talked with me, quite honestly, the significance and what happens when you don't pay your taxes and sewers and how you have to be on top of that. And him and I have worked long and hard in getting him to do that and to understand that.
All right, thank you.
Can I say something, please?
Yes. Who are you, sir?
I'm James Morial.
Okay.
owner of the
Okay.
Ex-owner of the property. I want you to know, the council members here, that I didn't sit idly by and let all this stuff go in arrears. When it started going in arrears, back in 2008, I talked to the girl at the tax office. And I asked her, what's going to happen here? And she said, and I wrote her a letter, told her how much I could pay. And she said, as long as you're making your payments, you're okay. So I thought I was okay. Yes, I didn't make the timely payments. Sometimes it wasn't always $350 a month. Sometimes it was $1,500 a month. As my money flowed, I was throwing as much money as possible that I could at this. We came up to July, and I had some code issues on 3 Village Street. And I was talking to Roger Cody here, or I'm sorry if I have your name wrong. Mr. Cody, how's that? About what to do with this, And 3 Village Street was quite a wreck. It's quite an eyesore. Very hard to get tenants in there. And I thought I had a tenant where Judy Goddard promised me that she would make up the difference in the rent if they couldn't make it. The girl's name was Julia LeBlanc. She worked for the town here. When she lost her job, I'm stuck with a tenant who couldn't even come close to paying. I told her she couldn't move in because she didn't have enough money, enough income. When Judy gave her guarantee, I let him move in. When I called up later after this girl was fired or left the employ of the town, I called Judy and said they fell behind again. She says, I can't talk to you about it. Sorry about that, it's a privacy issue. You have to have them contact me, which I did. Their reply then was, you make too much money, can't help you. So now I'm stuck with a tenant that I was guaranteed rent, and before I could get them out of there, it was over $3,000. I can document $1,900. Also, come here in July to work with Mr. Cody about those code violations, and there was many. There's no doubt about it. The building was in bad shape. For 3 years, I was calling Mr. Eldridge, I was calling their tax office, and trying to find out why these taxes are so much on such a junk of a property. I never got any return calls, but I also had the assurance from the girl in the tax office, you keep paying, you're okay. Flash forward to July and the code problems, and I'm in the office. Mr. Cody over here is telling people he's going to condemn the building, and I'm thinking, he hasn't told me. So I come down to talk to him, and I said, well, you know, he's saying, you know, you got a lot of back taxes on this property. I said, I certainly do. He goes, you probably can't come up with that. I said, well, we're working on it. He goes, you should talk to the town manager, which I did. I went and talked to Mr. Eldridge. And I suggested maybe, he asked, what should I do? And I said, you know, it's too much for me. Maybe we could talk to your economic developer. And, you know, if he knows anybody who wants to develop this corner, buy me out, I'm gone. He said that the banks usually pick up on the taxes to protect their investment. And that's when I told him that I took an equity loan out. There was no mortgage on this property. No bank had an interest in it. I come back another week to talk to Mr. Cody, and he hands me a paper that says both properties are foreclosed on. Whatever country you're in, the country I'm in, you should not be surprised by foreclosures. Yes, you sent me plenty of notices. Yes, I was in touch with your tax girl over here. Today, I tried to get a reading out of the taxes to see where exactly we were and what was paid. She said she was very busy. I said, well, how much time do you need, an hour, 2 hours? She goes, oh, it's going to take days. You ought to talk to Mr. Eldridge's secretary. I was disconnected. And that's as far as I've gotten. What I want you really to know is I haven't sat on my hands hoping all this would go away. I've been actively pursuing to solve this problem. I haven't gotten much help. And the day that I got that notice that said I was foreclosed on, I had some great big town engineer looking down his nose at me telling me, no, you can't talk to anybody else. Absolutely not. That's the way it is. Too bad for you. I went out and I borrowed $6,000 from a friend of mine, and I came down to pay up as much as I could. The reply was, we're not taking your check. I said, okay, I'll go across the street and I'll get a bank note. He goes, we need payment in full. I'd just gotten a reading from the girl, $7,000. Okay, I'll go get a bank check for payment in full. No, we're not taking any of your money. That was what I ran into. I ran into hostility from his secretary. I ran in from hostility. I got an abatement form, because when I found out that I tried to sell this property to get out, $135,000 is what 2 real estate agents told me. I didn't know about abatements until December. All the talking I did, nobody said, you know, you should fill out an abatement form to see if you could get out from under this, or see if you could get these taxes lowered. When I finally got that from the real estate agents, how much the property was worth, I pushed for one. And I had 2 people come over from the town, the girl in the assessor's office and a male, I don't know their names. And they looked it all over, they took all their notes, said, we'll be in touch. Come July, I'm talking to Mr. Cody over here about code violations, and I said, hey, whatever happened to that? Abatement forms. She goes, oh, it's on his desk. I said, well, who is he, and how do I get in touch with him? I got a shrug for an answer. I don't know. I said, you don't know how to get in touch with the guy who has to make a decision here? I said, is there a phone number? She said, well, we can get you an email address, which she did. By then, everything was moving way too quickly, and he was out of the picture. I got a tax notice here for 3 Village Street the other day. $39,900 is what it says, the appraised value. That dropped from $113,000 to $39,900, what I've been trying to get for 3 years. If this tax bill was $800 a year, I wouldn't even be standing here today. I'm still wondering what the property is valued at for the other one, $231. But if I go ask the girl, I'll get another shrug. I would really appreciate it if you gentlemen give me a little time with this. This is was supposed to be my retirement. It turned into quite the nightmare. Anything you could do, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
can I move this to a vote, Mark?
You can make a motion, yes?
I'd like to make a motion that we work with Mr. Morella to allow him to keep his property if he pays his taxes up the first of next week.
So you'd be relinquishing any claim on it, is what you're saying?
Yes,
I'm trying to understand
absolutely.
exactly.
And I think that we need to. As Steve said back at the first of the year, we will never take anybody's property for taxes. Well, if we're not gonna take anybody's property for taxes, step up to the plate. Because right now, we're trying to take this man's property, and I think it's wrong, and I think that we should stop it and nip it in the bud right now and give this man an opportunity. He's trying in good faith to make it work. Give him a break. And I say we vote to give it back to him right now.
In return for when he pays the money, you mean?
Yep.
Okay, if he pays the money, then you would relinquish our claim. Is your motion? Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, you second that? All right, any further discussion from council? Okay, go ahead.
I just was wondering if you have any future plans, if you were to get the properties back as to cleaning up that corner. It is one of the gateways to the community. Do you have any plans to try to?
The store in good shape. The village tree department, that one's already too far gone. You know, you already have possession of that. From what I understand, you already have plans to demolish the building. I'm not arguing for that one at all. You know, that's by me already. But my store and my income is the one that I would like, and yes, I can keep that up.
Fern, you had a comment?
Yeah, and again, I appreciate coming in and speaking. I mean, one of the downfalls of sitting on the council is the idea we're not actually, unfortunately, lawyers. And there's a lot of discussion I've heard tonight from a lot of different angles, and some of it's the idea of whether the gentleman brought up of some of the legalities and some of the legal motions, and this isn't something that just came about all in one day, and it'd be very difficult for me to make the decision without having all the proper documentation and the proper knowledge to make sure I am doing the right thing. And it's nothing against a business owner. I'm one in town also, and it is tough, there's no question about it. But I would definitely want to make sure there's been a long avenue, as you said, to get to this point. I would just want to make sure that as a counselor, I'm making a proper decision with the proper information that I need. And I'm not sure if I got all the information to make a proper decision right now. And that's not voting yes or no, that's basically just voting the idea that sat through a lot of different decisions as far as I think it's just really tough. I mean, I definitely I'm all for, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, the idea of working with anybody. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, that's all.
All right, anything further from council? All right, then, all those in favor? And opposed? 3-3, a tie, so it fails. I believe it fails without a majority.
Correct.
Okay. Any further motions?
Is there, I mean, would it be sensible to move forward that we actually put a date in the future where we actually will get together and actually be able to work with it to make sure he's not out on a limb waiting forever? I mean, at this point in time? I mean, is that something, Steve, that you can actually put together?
We have a workshop scheduled for the 13th next week. We could discuss it then.
Next week? Is that the 13th? Okay, yep, we can discuss. But we can't vote on it in a workshop, so.
No, we can't vote
Right, we
on
can
it.
discuss it.
And you can bring it
Right,
back
bring it back
at your
to,
next meeting on the
right,
20th.
we can do that.
I don't believe there's any other, and I would just want to make sure that there's really, the idea of going forward for us to be able to be more informed isn't the idea that's costing you more money in a sense. It's just more.
I paid this $8,600.
The one of the things that we've had in the, not so much the discussion, but the idea of when things are due and when they're not due, and the upcoming taxes, I think there'd just be a lot of stuff that I would like to understand that we're not actually, that we're treating everybody fairly, that's all. I mean, and I think this can be resolved, just the idea of making sure that that we have all the information out front of to be able to do it. I mean, that's my concern, but my concern would be the idea that we move forward in a very quick manner, so no one's left out wondering, and then that we just can get all the information, so I can actually make a decision that's voted on, that I make sure that you're treating right also, because there was some discussion brought up earlier about the idea of maybe things just not done properly, and I mean, that to me concerns me a little bit, so.
Irrespective of that, I think you have the right to accept the payment and release your interest, because it happens all the time in every community around here, including this town in the past. So it's nothing unusual.
But we've heard a lot of different discussions on both ways about it. I don't understand the business, something that comes across us every day. So, I just want to make sure that I'm doing the proper thing.
You know what other information you might need, just so that
Yes.
make sure, follow up, make sure it's all there for you?
I think it would be the idea of just kind of pulling together what we learned tonight and finding out exactly when the amounts owed and the time frame
how
and
much
payment,
you've
and
been
make
paid
sure
on a
that,
regular
just make sure that everything would be in a proper order, that's
Right.
all.
Maybe just drop a proper legal document releasing us so we can see exactly what we're signing on to would probably be helpful, I think.
You wouldn't be signing on to anything until after he made his payment.
Right.
It's just a release deed, a claim deed, which is what is typically done by the manager.
If we could actually, if we could hold tight, and myself anyways, and bring forward in that workshop and just have all the information that we can be discussing both sides, and then to make sure that we are doing the right thing for everybody.
Anything else from council? All right. So we don't have a motion on that. We'll go on to the next agenda item.
Order 2011-163 carries and transfers.
Hey, Mike? Go
Yes,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we move this item to another agenda. I'd like to have more detail behind this. I'd like to have the carry forwards broken out into 3 different categories. I'd like to see projects not started, projects in process, donation and revenues carried forward. I think we need to break out the carry forwards into those types of categories that they fall into to see what we're actually carrying forward and why. And then on the transfers, I'd like to see, at a line item level, not just at the department level, I'd like to see at the line item level, what we overspent and where we underspent. And I'd like to see, at least our philosophy be, that the first types of transfers we try to do is to stay within the department's budget to cover our transfers. And if we step outside of the department's budgets, we try to stay within the same line item level. For example, repair and maintenance in Public Works, and we go get repair and maintenance work from, say, the fire department, if one was overspent and one was underspent. And then lastly, if we had to, we go outside of those specific line items to cover the transfers. But understanding why we were over, why we were under for those, and the approach we used to get there. And I want to make sure that we're not seeing that we're using any funds to cover salaries.
I think that's
That's what I would
reasonable.
like to see for information before I voted on these transfers.
Would you be able to prepare that information, Steve?
The next meeting I can, yep.
How do the rest of people in council feel? Other people want to defer that to our next meeting? How do you feel? All right, we will table that to our next meeting if there's no objections. All right. Next item?
Order 2011-164, order for a public hearing relative to charter amendments.
You've held a workshop on the recommended charter amendments. In order to move this forward, we need an order for public hearing, so we can get that taken care of and get it on a ballot for November. I don't know if you want to ask Roger questions about some of the charter amendments, if you don't remember, but he's here tonight to help you answer any questions that you may have.
All right, anyone on council have any further questions about these amendments?
I do, Mark.
Go ahead, Roger.
We was told, I believe, at our last meeting or meeting prior to it, that you was gonna be looking into the charter amendment to give the people of the town of Lisbon the option to vote on their budget. And you was gonna come back with some type of presentation of what it would look like. I think Mr. Larochelle asked you to come back with what it would look like in an amendment.
And then I was told not to, so,
Who told you not to?
Mr. LaRochelle. Sorry, I don't mean to throw you
Does
under
he
the bus,
speak-
but
He can speak without the rest of the council, and we don't have to be taken into consideration? It was done at a council meeting that you were going to
I
do that.
remember, I was here.
Why would one counselor be able to dictate whether or not you're going to do something?
You will have it at your next meeting. Assuming that all of you want it.
And I would say we would table this whole document until next meeting.
You can't table this.
Why can't we?
Because you will not be within the timeframes for this year's amendments if you don't.
This sounds to me like a stall tactic to be able to not allow the people of this town to vote on their budget again. I've been bringing this up for how long? I've been a counselor for 3 years. I've been fighting this issue. Mr. Bickford has taken and gone out and talked to people and collected signatures. And now we're gonna be put in a situation where we can't put this on the budget because we didn't make the time.
Roger,
I find it very offensive to have a council speak to you and ask you to do something and then come in here because one councilor said no. I'm very, very upset by that, and it's just a continuation of the crap that goes on when you try to move something in here. You talk about, Laurie talks about not being able to get business taken care of, and then we turn around and blow our own feet off. This is something that was asked and requested by the council, and it never happened, and I'm not very pleased about it.
may I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Me and Fern and Mr. Eldridge have talked and came to an agreement which I kind of thought would be all right. And it does do what I think it's going to do what I wanted to do and what you wanted it to do. We wanted to have it put on the ballot, but not officially for November. Let the people vote for it and say yes. If they say yes, then we spend the money to have him make the document, and then it goes back, and when the people will vote for it.
That happened over a year ago, Roger.
Then it
Over
will
a
go
year ago, we said if we bring it to the school board, the school budget to the people, and if they pass it that they want to vote on their school budget, then we will take that they want to vote on their municipal budget also. And then we turn around a year later, and now we're going to put it on the budget, and if they vote on it, it is so frustrating to sit here on this council and work with people that are working against the people of this community. My God almighty, folks. These people are paying us to take care of business in town. They have requested that this gets put on the ballot, and you people are refusing to do it. What is it gonna take?
Well, I also remember a
Vote
number
the
of...
whole bunch of you off the council? If that's what it's gonna take, tell the people so that they can take action next year and the year after.
A number of people say, even the people that wrote the charter and the people that come in and also said that they wrote it that way because that's the way they wanted it to be run in the town, and they didn't want to see it come to a vote.
Then let the people of the
you've got
town
it on
vote it,
both
Mike.
sides. So I agree with what Roger's trying to do. If he wants to get it put an advisory type question on the ballot for an inquisition as to whether or not that's what the people really want in November, not in June, when 100 and some odd people show out.
And I'd rather have
Right.
it, if they say yes in November, I'd rather have it go back in November again
Yeah.
for the final.
The whole thing behind this is you want to change a charter to keep the people from the town of Lisbon to be able to recall you if you do something that they don't like. Why don't we try doing our jobs so they don't want to recall us instead of worrying about being recalled? Are we protecting something? Has there been some criminal action going on that we have to protect as a council? What is it, Mike?
Nothing.
No, it's nothing. It's always nothing. Then why are you so afraid to put it out to the people? Because you know the people go on a ballot.
I know the people that voted the charter in understood the charter when they voted it, and the majority of those people voted the charter the way it's written today. And I haven't heard anything other than a small portion of people
It isn't a
request
small
this to be
portion,
on
Mike.
the ballot. Well, if it's not, why don't we get more people telling us, more people calling us, more people showing up at meetings
Because they
rather than the
don't
same
want to
people?
be harassed, Mike.
Well, that's why we can put it on the November ballot, and then we'll know one way or the other how people feel.
So I'd just soon go with this route.
So that anything, and let's clarify something right now. Anything that we ask of our attorney to do, me as a single counselor can call and cancel anything, because it only takes one counselor, right? Is that the way that we're going to work this now?
Mark, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Fern.
That night that we were talking, Roger Bickford had actually gone out and actually went door to door and was actually talking to people and getting signatures to actually try to move forward on what he felt was actually a concern of people that voted him in, which I felt very passionate about because Roger was going over and beyond any of us councilors to try to move forward with what he felt with. That night, we had actually spoke about it a little bit when I know we had talked to Roger, and I had actually asked Roger what it would take to put this through, and Roger said it's a big undertaking. I met with Roger after that because Roger is the one that actually was very passionate about that night, and I wanted to know really what his direction was, what his feel was, and why he wanted to do it. And I told him if he wanted to support it, I would support him 100%, because even though I may not agree with it, or I may not understand it all the way, and as a council, we never got our hands around what this would detail. I mean, this isn't voting in a simple paragraph. This is voting in a very complex, scenario. And we met, and I came in with Steve, and I told Steve, and Roger happened to be there that day, and I said, I met with Roger, and I think that Roger's doing this because he really cares, and I will support him 100% in doing what he wants to do. And Roger thought the idea, as we spoke, the idea would go forward and pretty much ask the people what Roger's knocking on doors, asking people for right now. And at that point in time, I asked Roger, what is the details of the idea, or what would it take you to put this together? And Roger didn't even know if he had an opportunity at that time to actually bring it all together. I'm not saying he agreed or disagreed, or Steve disagreed or disagreed. I actually was trying to bring my ideas forward with Roger, had a concern for it, and I felt that Roger was feeling comfortable, so he didn't have to go door to door knocking on people, that we would bring this forward in a way that would actually please him. Since I had actually asked Roger that day what it would detail if he could pull something forward, I was the one that asked him saying, well, why don't we go this route instead? And then if it was proved forward, then we could spend X amount of dollars. As Dot mentioned earlier, we are definitely well expended over and beyond our legal fees. And, I mean, this isn't a $100 or $200 charter rewrite. I mean, this is the idea of, I would think, some serious time to write this properly. And I would hate to think that we would spend a lot of money rewriting this charter and not know if people really wanted it on the ballot. Be honest with you, Roger, I have never got one phone call or one person stopping in my business or calling me, telling me that they would want it. We can go around and do a straw poll, but I don't know of any other councilors, and maybe there are, that have had a tremendous amount of people come forward and ask for that.
I'll be really curious to see what you're gonna come up with for an excuse if you get a good 6,000 to 7,000 people to vote in favor of it. How are you gonna fight it then, Trent?
I won't. I would actually hear what people want. Well, like I say, Roger, I mean, I can honestly say I've never had anybody call me, and maybe Mike's had different than maybe Roger. I know Roger's actually spent a lot of time on this and actually gone out knocking on doors, and there's a lot of different views out there.
I
and
really wasn't looking forward to going to the transfer station on Saturday morning and afternoon and getting signatures. And this the people can do themselves. They can go to the voting, they can say, yes, we'd like to, or no. And it's gonna
Then
relieve
it's gonna
me.
be another year.
It will be another year, but
And
we,
it
how
won't be
long?
in
It wouldn't
effect for
be
next
ready for
budget.
this
There's
year.
no way to have
I
it
mean,
ready in time anyway, because we have to get this done.
It's not
We
like-
have to basically approve it tonight to have,
I tried this, Mark, 6, 7 months ago. I tried it a year ago. I tried it 2 years ago, and it's been the same stuff over and over and over.
I mean, the alternative, Roger, is if people feel the council isn't doing what they want, they can go out and, collect signatures for it and get a charter change put through that way and put that to a vote without the council. That's a way to do it under the charter.
But if they can go out and make a charter change to protect themselves so that the people of the town can't remove them by recall, and we can work that right in, slip. But if we're gonna give something that the people want, we can't have that. I hope the people out there are listening to this, because they need to, and they need to wake up.
If a majority of you want that as a charter change on this ballot, it can be ready to go to a public hearing. You simply need to vote to do that. My understanding was that what you wanted at this point was a referendum, advisory referendum, as to whether or not the people wanted to consider this before we went forward and did the actual charter change. If the majority of the council wants to include this in the current notice, then after we pass the one that we've got, you can make a motion to include it. I will draft it, get it to Twyla, and we will get it in the paper along with the others. It can be done.
Mark,
Yes, go ahead, Roger.
if the people of the town do not want to vote on their municipal budget, they will vote it down. Put it out there, let them vote on it, and watch what happens.
How does council feel about that?
So just for clarification purposes, you're gonna make all of the charter changes that apply to putting the municipal budget out to vote?
Yeah, I got 2 days to do it.
But wouldn't that actually have to be discussed with the
we
council?
don't
If
have a
those
chance to
changes?
read it.
We wouldn't have
Yeah,
a chance
we
to
would
read it
need
at
to
all
know.
before it gets to the public.
I'm not in favor of anything like that, sorry. If you're gonna make a change
You
like that.
voted on something tonight that you couldn't read.
No, I can read, Roger.
Well,
I can read.
you will have a chance to change it after the public hearing, so it's not anything that you won't have a chance to read and review and reflect on.
Mr. Fillmore, you have a comment if you keep it short?
Yeah, I do. Okay, first of all, the public is not allowed to speak at your workshops. I sat there through the workshop. I read your minutes to the meeting. Everything indicated that Terrio here was going to do the research for it, even though Mr. Cody had already done the research. He wanted to go through it again to make sure it was right. Mr. Bickford over there said he's been collecting signatures. What was the signatures you got? Oh, let's do it the easy way. How many people opposed what you were doing and how many people agreed with what you were doing?
I have one opposition.
You have one what?
One opposition.
So how many signatures did you collect? Hey, just give me a ballpark figure.
No, I just got them here somewhere.
Let's say, was it more than 2?
Yeah, it's like more than 200.
Thank you. Then the people are speaking out there that they want this on the ballot, and we're sitting here going, well, I don't know if the people really want this or not. He stopped. It was 200 to 1, or whatever the number is to 1. What does that tell you? That should be an overall view of the people, because he didn't select. Did you select just
All right, thank you,
people
Mr. Fillmore, that's enough.
Okay,
You
I
make a
have
point.
one more thing. I sent the council on 15 August 2 requests for changes to the charter. Those need to be incorporated, and you've had plenty of time to do it, to incorporate it in this year's ballot. You need to review them. Let's not make it 8, let's make it 11, and see where we stand. Because every one of you got it on the 15th of August. Nobody replied, and it's not been discussed in a workshop or anything else, because it went right by the side, okay? We the people, and I'm one of the people, asked you people to consider 2 changes. Come on now, I'm part of the people too.
Right.
I pay my taxes.
But you're also not part of the council, so thank you, Mr. Fillmore. And the council has a prerogative to decide how it wants to do its business. We've all been elected here.
It's never been discussed, Mark.
It was never brought to me. No one asked to put that on the
It
agenda.
was sent to you in an email, Mark.
No council asked to put it on the, no councilor asked me to put that on the agenda. Any further discussion from council? All right, do I have any motions?
Well,
Okay,
are we gonna talk about,
yes, go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
on question 6, the lapse of appropriation, it says amend by deleting the stricken text as follows, but I don't see any stricken text. I see added text. I just wanna make sure I'm not missing something there.
You want 6?
I mean, maybe it's just a typo, it says at the top there.
No, I've got them.
amend by
I'm trying to
deleting
find them.
The stricken text as follows, and
I think it should be adding stricken text, adding the
Okay.
underline.
So it's an add.
I think it's an add, yep.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make that
That
change.
would make more sense.
It would.
And could you?
Yes, go ahead.
On question 7, the rewrite of the bonds. Curious about understanding the ordinance, potentially creating an ordinance if we wish, which is under the adoption procedures, 609. But then I think it's on, where did I see it? There's a section in, another section which like contradicts that ordinance. I think it's an effective date, under effective date. There's a permanent financing ordinance issued by the town council under its authority.
And not requiring a public referendum.
So, but up front it says if we create one, it has to be a public referendum. So, I'm just, at least that's the way I read it. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm,
No, I don't think so. It says in A2, where a referendum vote is required under the provisions of 811B2. So there may be instances where you don't need to go to referendum.
we could get a bond without ever having to go to referendum? How could that happen?
I believe we can bond under a certain amount.
Yeah,
It's
under a
under
certain amount.
100,000, I
It'd
believe.
be under 100,000. I'm not sure why we would ever bond 100,000, but you're just covering that base then.
I am, and oftentimes what happens, I see communities doing at this point, is they will get into things like lease purchase arrangements or small notes for a piece of equipment over a very short period of time with a local bank. That kind of financing would be something that council could do by itself.
Not if the item's over 100,000.
No, I said under 100,000. So it does
So
happen.
you're saying that the ability to do financing outside of bonds,
Right.
wouldn't you have another section for that rather than it being under bonds? Why would I be discussing financing outside of bonds in the bond section? I guess I'm so confused.
Because there are other types of financing, notes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bond.
Should we change the title of 6.09? So it's not just bond issues?
It is changed. It's changed to permanent financing.
Oh, okay, I guess I
Okay.
didn't catch that piece.
That's the reason why.
All right. There you
Okay?
go. That'll straighten it out. Thank you.
Ask enough questions, we'll finally get there.
Anything further from council? Any other questions?
Point of order.
What?
In accordance with paragraph 2-08 ordinances, an ordinance does not go into effect until 21 days after the final approval. 2-08 states, especially as otherwise prohibited in this charter, every ordinance shall be effective 21 days after the date of final adoption. According to the minutes of August 2nd, 2011, the council voted 6-1 to approve the council working rules. Today is September 6, 2011, a total of 35 days. So these working rules should be in effect. However, Section 74-201 of the town charter is the working rules for the town council. I downloaded a copy of these working rules because no one in the town office could provide a copy of the working rules. In accordance with paragraph E5D reads, once the agenda item has been explained by its sponsor or the town manager or staff and clarified by any questioning as provided above, there will be time devoted for any resident, taxpayer, or authorized representative of an organization residing or taxpayer of then the town of Lisbon to address the council regarding this particular agenda item. Are you telling me that the council working rules that you push through here hold precedence over the town charter? Is that what you're telling me, and you're not going to allow me to speak on this issue? The town charter is what we go by. It's the Bible. You people have not updated it. You've had 21 days. It's not there. So we have to go by the charter. The charter is the Bible. And I feel as though I should be able to speak on this item because it is the charter that I'm going by.
I run the meeting here, Larry. I'm in charge. And if you have something to say, say it. But you can be respectful to other people here. If you expect respect and you don't show us any respect at all.
I apologize. I didn't know I wasn't showing respect. All I asked was that if you people asked us as counselors to send our concerns to you to be considered. I did that. I followed your guidelines. And now we're going to say that we're only going to put 8 items on the table. The 8th one is a complete distortion of what should be done, in my opinion. My opinion only, okay?
Right, and it's the council's prerogative to decide what we want to put on there, and you don't have a right to just insert things like that. If you want to do that, you can go out, and under the charter, you're allowed to collect signatures and put an item on the ballot.
But wouldn't I first bring it to the council to
And
have them
the council
consider?
the council can choose whether or not we want to go ahead with a suggestion. Councilors get suggestions from people all the time. We're not required to follow any of people's ideas.
And we don't deserve a reply?
If you'd addressed the letter specifically to me, I would have replied to you, but I get an email, I get tons of emails. I don't reply to 90% of them because, it's just how email is.
Okay, thank you.
If you want a specific reply, Larry, I need a letter in writing.
I did that.
And you got replies. All right, Dot, you're out of order. There are other times to
Clarify
discuss
where
this.
we're at here.
Let's go back to the issue at hand. All right, do we have anything further on charter amendments? Nothing further from council on charter amendments?
Is there a motion out there about
That's-
moving this along?
I'm waiting for a motion. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, what's your motion?
Make a motion to accept the charter amendments as we have them.
And to schedule a public hearing?
No.
You need to
All you're
schedule a
doing is
public hearing.
scheduling the public hearing.
Right.
All right.
You get to
Right.
determine
I'll
what
make
you
a
want to do
motion
with them
schedule a
in 2
public
weeks.
hearing to discuss the charter amendments.
Okay.
I would second that, so a public hearing, we can have proper discussion.
All right. All those in favor? And opposed?
Now, can
Order
I,
passed,
yes.
5-1.
excuse me, Twyla,
Go ahead.
can I get some direction here as to whether or not majority of this council wants an amendment that will allow the public to vote on the budget for this November and wants to put that out in a form that can be voted on? I don't want to be sitting here again having people tell me I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So I need to know from you folks what I need to do.
I would like to see it, but I don't think there's enough votes here. But I would like to make sure that it gets on the ballot one way or another, even if it's just I just don't think we got enough votes.
I'll do whatever a majority of you want to do, okay? I just need to know what that is, and right now, I don't have a clue.
As the discussions we've had for the last 3 years, as Roger said, there's been never a proper plan on to put this together to make this work. I mean, we've had many discussions as a council, how this works and how the vote would go and how it would be pushed along, how the vote would be activated, whether it was voted up or down, or how we would know how to move with the vote. This is just a very complex scenario that we see if you look in the paper and you read different towns that actually have had this scenario. Monmouth actually spent 6 votes to come back to the same solution they had on their first vote because they didn't have a proper guideline on how this would be done. And I don't think that we ever had, nor will we ever put forth the information because there's a lack of it to actually be able to put this to vote. I really don't. So it would be my opinion that we not move forward to put this on the charter amendment for this year, because I would not support it without having it be done right.
Mark,
Yes, go ahead, Roger.
let the people vote on it, Vern.
Vote on
Put
what
it
though,
out
Roger?
there.
We've never,
Put
even
it
though it's been
out there.
implied that you've brought information forward, which you have. I mean, you've
Put it-
been an advocate for this. There's never been a set rule plan, and it's not that Roger couldn't put something together in a short period of time, but it would not be what the council, as we were voted in as the council,
No.
to approve to make sure it's correct. And I have never seen a way yet that is better laid out than what we have, to have people that are voted on by the town of Lisbon to make that decision. People can vote me out at any point in time, that's fine, if they don't think I'm making the right decision, but people voted me in to make it. And, I don't go through, weeks of budgets and understanding budgets and trying to figure out the budgets for people not to understand it. So, I mean, at this point in time, like I say, I mean, I really feel strongly that Roger is, has a concern that he's working with, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that Roger's concern is taken care of, because I think he's actually put out the step for it. Would it be a decision I would make? Maybe not, but I mean, I'm standing behind a council that I feel is passionate about what he wants to do, and in a place that I can help him with. So, I mean, as far as we're going to make a charter amendment, I would not approve it. I'm not sure if you want to do a straw poll, but that's my decision.
Go ahead, Larry.
I would not be in favor of going through with all of the charter things, but certainly to put an advisory question on the referendum, I'd be happy to do. That
what I
way,
want.
we have feedback about what the people really do want in a large election, and then we can commit to making those changes, because it's so big. It's my understanding, every time this has come up, that the changes are so huge. One of the things that we get charged with, or the allegation, is that we don't know what we're doing. How could we, in a couple of days, look at all of the changes that would need to happen? So I want the feedback from people to say, we want it or we don't. And then we'll have to make that one of our goals to work through next year.
All right.
Yep.
Go ahead. What do you think, Mike?
I agree.
I mean, I certainly support the idea. I just don't know how we can put something to the public without even seeing it ourselves first. That seems, we put it out there and the people might beat us up because they don't like some provision of it and we never even saw it. I don't know how to vote on that. It's going to be a complex thing. I mean, I don't see, I assume this would be at least as complex as the bond, one that you've drafted here, because it does change a lot of places in the charter. Go ahead, Roger.
Why didn't we put it on a ballot and ask the public 3 years ago, like I requested?
I wasn't here
Was-
3 years ago.
I asked it 2 years ago. I
wasn't here
asked
2
it a
years
year ago. I asked it 6 months ago. And always the same song and dance. The bottom line is, if we're not being a self-serving council and changing charter rules so that we can make sure that the people of town of Lisbon can't remove us, or that we are not doing what they want us to do and they will remove us, well then, we've got to change the charter rules. But when it's something for the people, we all snub up and go against it.
I beg to differ.
And I
about what
personally
Roger said.
hope and pray that the people of this town are smart enough to turn every one of these charter amendments down and stuff it right up their noses, because it's not in the best interest of the people of Lisbon.
We'll see what happens in November.
I hope they read every one closely and decide whether they agree with each individual one and make their choices that way. And
So do I understand a majority of this council wants not the amendment itself, but a referendum vote to determine whether or not the folks want to consider an amendment that would allow them to vote on budgets?
yes.
1, 2, no?
Yes.
Yes, yes, okay. Thank you for some direction.
Thank you. All right, next item, Twyla.
Is Order 2011-165, Conservation Commission member disqualification.
You have a member of the Conservation Committee that has moved out of town. Their residence is now in Green, and he has not been attending meetings, so it's been requested that you as a council consider his position vacant, so we can fill that position.
I'd make a motion to have Justin Doolin's position removed.
I'll second it.
Not being in council.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion from council? All right, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
All right, the next item?
Under other business, a revaluation overview.
Mr. Van Tynen will get up, and he's just going to give you an overview of the reval process and what you can expect.
Thank you. I'll give a bit of a presentation, not very long, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. At this point in time, I have a staff of 4 people that work in the field, and 1 person that does a lot of clerical work. They've all worked for me for some period of time. The staff is myself, my son Jacob Van Tynen, he's a certified Maine assessor, has worked for me for several years. Alan Gove, who's a certified Maine assessor and has worked for me for a few years and has worked quite extensively here in Lisbon. Abby Robbins, who's a certified Maine assessor and has worked for me on several revaluation projects. And Nancy Clark, who is my clerical person and has worked for me for, I guess, a little over 20 years. So that's the staff that I have. They will all be involved in doing work here in the town of Lisbon. Abby, Alan, and Jacob will be doing a lot of the residential listing. I'll be doing a lot of the more industrial, commercial listing. The project will be done over 4 years, as you have requested that it will be done. But it will all be implemented in 1 year, all at the same time. We will collect information on properties with a field inspection, where we go to a property, request to look at the inside and the outside of the property, and we will note a lot of land and building characteristics on a property record card, which is something most people have seen over the years that checks off the details about the property, the type of foundation, the type of heating system, the type of siding, the type of roofing, the number of rooms, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, a lot of property characteristics. And we will be entering all of those property record characteristics in a computer system as we gather the data in the field. But we will not be using it to update any section of town or portion of town or type of property before they're all done and they're all updated at the same time. While we're at the property, we will sketch the property. We'll measure it with a tape measure or an electronic distance meter, and we will make a freehand sketch in the field. And that freehand sketch will show various components of the building. Sometimes you go to a building and it's very straightforward. It's a 24 by 36 two-story house, and that's all it is. There's just that one component of the sketch. A lot of other buildings, it's maybe a house similar to that, plus a one-story section, plus a 1.5-story section, plus a breezeway, so it'll be appropriate, broken down into those component parts based on what's there in the field. We'll also enter that sketch on the computer system. And the sketches will all be digitized and stored in the computer system and be printable on a property record card or evaluation printout when the project is complete. We'll also take
a digital photograph when we visit the property, and that digital photograph will be stored on the computer and linked to the property, so that when you look at the property record on the computer, or you print out a property record card or evaluation printout, you have the option of printing out the photograph. So that's one component, that data gathering. Another component is the data entry. We realize that not everybody is going to be there the first time we go to a house. A lot of people are not there during the daytime, and we will make secondary and tertiary efforts to get inside of houses, and we will leave a callback form or mail a callback letter requesting, after we've gone there a couple of times and haven't found anybody home, for them to call my office to make an appointment for us to view the property. If it's a year-round house, and it looks like mail's being delivered and picked up, and it's very likely that they'll respond to a callback notice. We'll just leave a notice on the door knob of the house. If it's a property that doesn't look like it's occupied on a regular basis, perhaps it's a seasonally used home, or people go south for the winter, that type of thing, then we will try to appropriately send a letter so that it just doesn't, a door hanger just doesn't languish on the door and blow away. So that's another part of the process, making those efforts to get inside after we go to a house the first or second time and are unable to find anybody home. We will be gathering information on sales, and we'll start doing that right away, but the bulk of the sales analysis will be the last couple of years of the project, close to the implementation of the project, with the most weight being placed on recent sales. The idea of a revaluation, it's called a mass appraisal, where you're appraising a whole universe of properties, all the properties in a town at the same time, is to build a valuation model, to test it against sales. It's called sales ratio analysis, to develop a model that works reasonably well. And you do that by repetitively testing the relationship between your assessed valuations and sales prices, to try to perfect a model that creates as close a fit as you can get with sales activity that's occurred. You have a number of income producing properties, apartment houses, some shopping centers, where a hydroelectric plant, where the income that the property produces is a very important component of trying to estimate its value. And on those kinds of properties, we will be doing the same kind of listing and data entry as we are on other properties, but we will be supplementing that with some economic data, where we will request from owners of income producing properties information about their rentals, information about their income, to also incorporate an estimate of value from an income approach to those kinds of properties, where that's an important component of why people would purchase them. We will be collecting information on personal property, where we will mail a request for a list of business equipment and business personal property, and that will be supplemented by a walkthrough of the facility that has that personal property to make sure that the listing is reasonably accurate, and if it's not, it will be supplemented by on-site observation of the personal property that is located there. The personal property will all be valued as either Betty exempt property, new equipment that's put in place that you get some level of reimbursement from the state, or as taxable personal property if it's taxable personal property. That is going to be limited to business property. The personal property that is generally taxable in the state of Maine is business personal property, not things like your home entertainment center or your lawnmower or your snow blower or that type of thing. The way I have tried to plan for the project, and it's detailed in the proposal that I submitted to you, is to do a little bit more of the data gathering in the first 3 years of the project. And then in the final year of the project, to finish the data gathering, data entry, to finish all of the sales analysis, and to mail out valuation notices to all the property owners in town, saying, this is your valuation based on the new valuation of the town. This is your estimated tax based on the budget probably from last year. I'm envisioning sending out the notices in the in the winter of 2014, trying to get things all done by the end of that fiscal year to be able to use it for the tax bills, the tax commitment for the next year. The notices of the new valuation will be mailed out from my office. The calls for appointments to hold hearings will be coming into my office. We will arrange for appointments, and we'd probably use a room like your council room here or one of your other meeting rooms to be able to have a number of people holding hearings at the same time so that it doesn't go on and on for an extremely long period of time. That's the revaluation process in a nutshell. That's the people I will be using on the revaluation process. Those people all are employed by me at the present time. And that's an overview of the process.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just a quick question, Bill. So when the data's all done in the fourth year, that's now at 100% valuation at that point in time?
That'll be at 100% valuation. The whole goal is a couple of things. I mean, we want to be at certainly a close estimate of 100% of value. I would rather be at 98 or 97% of value rather than 103 or 104% of value. I mean, I try to have a reasonable but perhaps somewhat conservative estimate of 100% of value. And it will be based upon what's out there at the same time. It's at the current time. It's going to be based on current property characteristics collected within a 4-year period of time. And it'll all be implemented at the same time. One of the things that I have a little bit of concern about is if I come across a property that is tremendously undervalued, let's say it's had additions, garages, things like that have been added to the property that have gone unnoticed. I don't think there's a lot of that, but there might be some of that. Or if there's a property that is mistakenly valued, overvalued because it's gone downhill. I mean, my general approach is going to be, that's not part of the revaluation. The revaluation is to bring everything up to the same valuation at the same time based on a current inventory. And unless it's unbelievably an egregious injustice, I don't plan to address that. But if there may be some situations that are, where it really seems that it would be unfair not to address it, at least to some degree. And I don't know how I'm gonna handle all of those, but that's, my idea is that you voted for a revaluation for it to be implemented after everything is inspected, all at the same time. And that's what I plan to do.
Anything else? Yes,
Can I ask
go
a
ahead.
question? If you're not gonna bring the value of the properties up or down according to what they actually should be, how can this evaluation be accurate?
I am gonna bring it all up to what it should be, all in the
But
same
you
year.
said if you found some that were really high or really low, you didn't know how you was gonna deal with that.
I'll try to give you an example, all right? You had a gentleman in here earlier pleading for some assistance and an extension of time to make good on his tax payments. And he gave you an example. I'm just repeating what he told you. That his tax bill this year went way down. Way down. And it went way down because he was overvalued. Not by a little bit, not that he was just a little bit above similar properties, but it was, in my opinion, an injustice that I could not overlook. And I adjusted it downward this year, not as part of a revaluation, but as the regular valuation process, regular year-to-year tax assessment process, because it just wasn't a little out of line. It was extremely out of line. And I felt that it would be impossible for me to overlook that kind of a valuation issue. And I did the right thing.
Any further questions or comments from council? All right. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, next item, Twyla.
On town manager's report.
If you have been by the MTM Center, they dropped off materials. I didn't get up there today to see if they actually started ripping the roof off, but they had planned to get right into it as soon as the weather permitted. E.T. Smith, if you've been by that building, the siding is looking real nice. And if you look across the street, you can see the Lisbon Emergency is also coming very well on their building, which will be nice. Also, I'm not sure how many people knew, but we were asked if we would like a piece of the Twin Towers and I-beam. We were given that. We picked it up ourselves, and it's right now currently in Ricker Park. When the fire department and public safety people are ready, they'll set a date to dedicate this. But I think it's a real honor to have that. On top of that, which was stated earlier, the fire department, police, and public works did an excellent job taking care of Irene. They were out right away, making sure things were up and running, and did a good job. And county commissioners, we were visited by Commissioner Labonte to talk another proposal. He had several options on the consolidation of the dispatch. It's a little difficult to look at this spreadsheet and say that it's fair across the board. I've contacted Commissioner Greenwood. He and I talked about it a little bit, and we've sent it off to all the other smaller communities. It would be a substantial increase with his method of calculating. It seems like the only town that would benefit would be Auburn, which seems to be the town that he represents. But so right now, I haven't heard except from one other town manager who's in the middle of trying to get a school budget passed and something similar. So he's up to his neck in that issue and is not ready to address it, but I think once everybody has some time, we may be coming back to you with just a workshop to discuss more of that. And Mike being on the budget committee for the commissioner really needs to be kept up on what their proposal is. But that's all I have.
All right, next item, Twyla?
Nomination papers that are update. I just want to let you know that the papers circulating out in the public right now for town council at large are Roger Cody. For school committee, Marcy Crosskill, Dean Wiley, and Lorraine White have picked up nomination papers and are circulating them for school. And for water commissioner, Ken Wells is circulating papers. There's no one circulating papers for budget advisory board at large or for budget advisory board District 1.
Thank you, Twyla.
Just a reminder, those papers, you can pick them up at the town clerk's office and you can file them by September the 26th by 4:30. You'd need 50 signatures or not more than 75 signatures to qualify.
It's always good to get a few extras in case, some people turn out to be in the wrong district or they lived out of town and they signed it anyway.
Good idea, yes.
All right, the next item?
Under appointments, Order 2011-166, Planning Board, 1 associate member.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right.
Name who it is.
Yeah, I would like to name who it is. All right, hold on.
Steve Warren, 3-year appointment.
Okay, Steve Warren, and, all right, any discussion of Steve Warren? All right. All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
All right, and the next item?
Order 2011-167, Planning Board, 1 regular member, 3 appointment for 3 years, 1 application, Dan Niesel.
I make the motion.
Seconded?
Any discussion of Mr. Niesel? I've served with him on the planning board, and I think he's concerned about the town, so
To say how long he's been on the planning board seems like forever, so.
I think longer than I've been around.
Yeah. It doesn't say how many years, but I know it's been a long time.
All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
And next item?
Order 2011-168, Recreation Committee, 1 alternate member, reappointment, 3-year term for Kel Curtis.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
One of the things that, and I know this isn't a new face to any of these committees at all, but has there been any thought as we go forward with our workshops, talking about the idea of people, and I know he knows what the rec committee does, but moving forward with the idea, if we've got any feedback by the committees that they want to move forward with the idea of someone making it to a meeting and getting an idea of what happens in the committee before they're voted through. These are all kind of veteran people, so I mean, but
Yeah.
there's been work on that.
There's been some work on that, and we've actually sent an email out to all the committees that we met with and some that didn't attend, to try to get, if they see what progress they're making with setting goals. Do they have bylaws? We had requested the copies of their bylaws or goals that they had, and we haven't received them. I know the Conservation Committee and Rec Committee are working on theirs, so that was nice to hear. Expect to see something soon.
Is there any more discussion about the people that was gonna come from the water department to make a presentation on the removal of the fishways or whatever?
Yeah, that's been scheduled for the first meeting in October. In your packets, I supplied you with a bunch of material on the Atlantic Salmon Organized Federation. So they will
It's
be,
still active, they're still gonna take place then?
yeah, they're on the agenda for the first meeting in October, which will be the 4th. They asked, I had talked to them about coming on the 20th. They wanted more time, and the 20th was filling up, so we said that's perfect. So they're gonna do a PowerPoint presentation for you, but Gina had requested if I could collect as much information on them as I could, and I supplied you with a pretty good packet, so if you do your homework, you'll be up to date on what they've been doing and success they've had, and not so much success.
All right, so do I have a motion on Mr. Curtis?
We have a motion second, I think we're waiting for a vote.
Okay, sorry, all right. All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
And the next item?
Order 2011-169, Assessor William Van Tynen, reappointment, 1 year, expiring June 30th, 2012.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
5-1. Motion carried.
All right, and the next item?
Counselor Communications?
All right, well, I'd like to say thank you to Roger Cody, because during the Hurricane Irene, we had a tree fall down across our driveway and almost smashed our cars, and Roger, being a great neighbor that he is, came over and helped us saw it up and cleared it away, and I really want to thank you for that, Roger. I really appreciate that. And I also want to say thank you to all the other people that responded to my pleas for help, and not everybody could get there in time before Roger was right on the ball with that, but thank you for thinking of us, and thank you for being willing to extend your help. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Roger.
I'd also like to thank your mom for the nice pumpkin bread she sent me. This whole episode tonight with the voting on the budget, this really, really bothers me. I've had 3 years of being a counselor, and I've worked very hard at trying to get that through this council. And if I seem to overreact to some people in the audience or at home over this issue, it's because I have tried so desperately hard to get this. I do know for a fact that when this goes out to a vote, the council is going to be overwhelmed. They will not believe how many people want this in their town. They want to be able to designate where their money is going to be spent. And I am going to, with your people's help, if you put me back in here for another 3 years, I will keep going for another 3 years, and maybe by that time we can get it pushed through for you. Thank you very much.
Anything else from council?
Actually, myself. Had an opportunity to, over the weekend, there was a pretty serious traffic accident in Durham out on Route 9, and being in the record service, I was there after the accident, and I would like to thank the first responders of Lisbon to actually support our town the way they do. Speaking to the folks at Durham, it was, had their whole staff there, but they were very thankful in a situation that was very intense to actually see Lisbon roll up. They say it's very nice to see people from out of towns having the support that they do, and it was very well welcomed in a very serious scenario, and I think that the outcome of that was very much helped by the idea of Lisbon being as dedicated as they are and having the equipment they do and being so willing to help, and they were overwhelmingly talking how great it was to turn around and have Lisbon there to help them out. So I want to thank the people of our fire department and police department that responded. Unfortunately, it wasn't mentioned in the paper, but they were there, and they actually played a big role, I think, in helping them out. And it's nice when you go and people actually comment how well that they like to see our town show up because of the equipment and training that we have. And not taking any away from Durham, because Durham actually does a really good job, but it's always nice and something that's that big to actually have people to back you up, and it may make a difference whether or not the outcome of that scenario was, because it was pretty traumatic from what I could see. So again, thank you for the first responders of Lisbon, police and fire, because they definitely make us look good out there. They really do. Secondly, I'd just like to go back to talk about, as we are as council, I mean, we were voted in, and many people always come up to me and say, do what you need to do, because that's why I voted you there. And every time we come to the council meeting, we're trying to do what we can do the best we can. And I know Roger's been as passionate about this over the last 3 years going about this vote. But one thing I've learned, that even though I like ideas, when the council votes against me, that's where I move forward. I mean, I just understand that the council is a majority, and that's why we are what it is, and that's why we vote. And every time this has come up to grips, there's always been a majority that voted not to move it forward. And it hasn't been just a one-on-one or everybody's fighting Roger. It's been the idea that there's been different feelings, and there's a lot to this scenario than the idea of just making a vote and making it happen. So again, as councilors, hopefully we're doing what we're supposed to do, and if we're not, hopefully you tell us, but we are definitely working to do the best we can, and it's not 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4 people in this town that actually decide the majority of the town. It's the majority of the town. I would like to see people have constructive criticism. The idea of attacking people and actually in any way, whether it's a blog site, media, down street, however it is, I think that people ought to give the councilors credit for actually spending the time they do to take the abuse they do. been asked by a lot of people saying, geez, I'd love to be a counselor, but why would I bother? You know, I would only get paid for that type of abuse, you know, which unfortunately that's what it comes down to, you know, personally. And you just hate seeing people attacked for trying to do the good of the town, because they could sit at home and watch TV and be enjoying evenings like this very easily, but they come out here to do the best they can. So I do respect all the members of the council, even the council members I don't agree with. I respect them 100% because they're doing what they think needs to be done for the town. And I think that's why we have a 7-person council, so we can actually work with the majority. And the majority usually works forward to do the best interest of the town, and I think that's why we're councilors. So, you know, I actually feel that we are, at least myself, doing the best we can. If the town wanted to hire 7 lawyers to be up here, I think they would do that, but unfortunately, I don't think they will. Exactly, so I think they want to, you know, regular people of town, and I just want to make sure everybody know that we're doing the best we can, and unfortunately, it's probably not the best that everybody wants, but it's the best that we can do, so.
Thank you. Anything else?
Sorry about that, Mr.
And I do want to follow up, I agree with you, Fern, that I think we all need to be respectful of each other even when we disagree, and that's been a problem that all of us in the whole town have struggled with, I think. So if we can work on that, we'll be stronger as a town. All right, next item, Twyla?
Order 2011-172 to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? And opposed?
6-0.
We still need some signatures on the
All right.
warrant.
We need something signed here. This.
You have them ready to do some other